being distracted by the birds. Hey legends, this is I Am Manifestation. I'm your conscious manifestation coach, Cerise, and I help you get out of your own way so you can manifest your version of an awesome fucking life. In today's video, I'm going to try and keep this quick. I want to give you a personal example of circumstances don't fucking matter. Now, this particular example is job related, but keep in mind you manifest everything the same way, so apply it to whatever circumstances you may come across that seems like it's set in stone when it isn't. Nothing is set in stone unless you accept that it is or choose for it to be, okay? And also remember, not everything is as it seems. So sometimes something's happening on the path of least resistance that initially seems like it's going against you getting the thing you want. And then you get it. So in this particular example, I was working in a previous job in recruitment in a big agency, an international agency. And I had started there as just a normal level administrator in the office. And I had worked there for about 2 years. So I decided that since there wasn't really anywhere for me to move up within the office that I was in, even it was an international company, right? So there was the opportunity to potentially transfer to somewhere else, but I wanted to continue living in Melbourne. My boss who hired me, her position was pretty much the only position I could move up into, which was the office manager position. She did get promoted to regional lead admin, but that was more just because she's a lifer. Like, she's still there to this day, and she had been there for 9 years when I first worked there. I worked there for almost 5.5 years, and I haven't worked there for about 3.5 years, I think now. So she's almost been there for 20 years. So she got a promotion to regional lead, but it was more of a title to justify her pay rise and for being there for so long. And she didn't really do that much in terms of the other offices within the region, apart from like the odd task. But she wasn't as active with those offices as she was with the Melbourne office. When I started working there as well, there was 35 people in the office. That is relevant to the story. There was only 35 people total working in the office. So by the time I'd been there for 2 years, I was like, okay, my manager's a lifer. She's not going anywhere. So it might be time for me to move on to another job where I can move up, because at the time I had wanted to kind of work my way up the corporate ladder. I thought that that was the way. I thought that was really the only way for me to like make a decent amount of money in a job. Now, obviously, I'm working towards solely doing my own thing, running my own business, which I do currently at the same time as working a part-time job, which I made a video on in terms of how I manifested that part-time job and how, as far as working for someone else, it's a fucking amazing job. Last week, go check that out. I'll link that here. I'm pretty sure I'm putting to the right side. So I wanted to move somewhere where I would have the opportunity to move up the corporate ladder. And look, it had crossed my mind that at some point my manager would want to start a family with her partner, who she'd been with for a really long time, and that she might go on maternity leave at some point, and that I could fill in for that and have that on my CV, since I knew when I started that she wasn't going anywhere and that there probably inside the office we were in wasn't going to be somewhere for me to move up into. And sure enough, she one day announced her pregnancy, and this was not planned. She was like, I didn't plan this. This wasn't meant to happen for a few more years. Like this, like I wanted to do this, and this first. So she got pregnant, and I went for the maternity leave cover role. It was myself, one of the other, and two of the other girls on my team. All three of us went for the role. One of them was relatively new, so I wasn't really worried about her. But the other had been working there for almost as long as me, like started a couple months after me, and we both looked after the same area, but I was temp, which was more high volume and fast paced, and she was doing permanent, which was like slower and lower volume. But then on top of that, in terms of the teams we looked after, on top of that, we both took on like high volume calls and things like that. When my manager used to go on annual leave or was away, like unwell or whatever, I was her go-to gal, okay? I was the one who did her tasks while she was on leave. I was the one who looked after things when she was unwell, which she was pretty often, quite a sickly person, and like just colds and things like that, nothing serious, and allergies. And so I felt pretty confident about the fact that like I was used to high volume, which was more pressure, and I already did her tasks for her when she was away. And I was also the most tech savvy out of the myself and the other girl who I considered to be the person that they would consider to be my competition, not who I considered to be my competition. Lovely girl, got along with her really well and everything. But yeah, just in terms of like what would be required for the office manager role for the maternity leave cover, I felt pretty confident that like I already did all those things here and there. So I would be the person to do them for the maternity leave cover role. And in terms of being tech savvy, that was pretty important because our IT was located in the Sydney office. So we had to do a lot of things remotely or follow instruction on the phone or, just be able to like by process of elimination, figure out what might be an issue with someone's computer, like, do they need to restart it? Or like have an idea of how the programs work and be able to like click through things and kind of know where to look on programs to kind of figure out what the problem might be. I didn't need to be an IT person, but I needed to be pretty tech savvy, or the person doing the job needed to be tech savvy. So I was sure it was my role. I didn't get it. I didn't get it initially. Okay. So the only thing that I did think could work against me was that the other girl who went for the role that I considered to be, well, that I considered to be the person that they would think would be my competition, was that she was a few years older than me. So at the time, I was in my late 20s and she was in her early 30s. And like I'm a bit quirky and I'm 37 now and I still carry a Marvel backpack to work to carry my laptop and stuff. So I think in terms of like where she was at in her life and how she presented herself and where I was at in my life at the time and how I presented myself, maybe they thought she would be the more mature option just from visuals. And that's kind of what I think I created. So she actually got the role over me. However, my language, and keep in mind this was before I understood how conscious manifestation worked, before I discovered the law of assumption, my language about it never changed. And I was shitty. Like, this is why it's not your feelings that manifest. I was pissed off. I was frustrated. But the way I spoke about it when I talked to like my mom about it or, my friends that I worked with was always, I'm the only person who makes sense for that role. Like, it's my role. I was meant to do that role. That was how I was always describing it. And again, I didn't know what I was doing, but my thoughts were going out in all directions. And whatever needed to happen in a way that didn't hurt anybody to shift things for it to be mine was happening while I was saying these things. So I was saying to my mom, to my friends at work, to my friends outside of work, like, I'm the only person who makes sense for this role. It's my role. It's meant to be my role. And I was in that time, as you might remember me saying, the office started out with 35 people, but it was growing pretty quickly. Like it had built up a decent amount of success and the teams were growing pretty quickly. And the office, like the amount of people was starting to outgrow the office space that we had. So we needed to do an office upgrade. And I saw that as an opportunity to, if I couldn't have the maternity leave cover thing on my role, to show that I can take on more responsibility when I went for another role, I would put my hand up to do the office upgrade, to look after that, I was essentially the project manager for that role. And this is when I really started to like appreciate my self-worth in terms of my capabilities, regardless of the fact that I didn't get that role, right? Because they were going to get me to do the project manager role without giving me any money for it. Like I was going to be doing my own job, high volume temp job in recruitment, and doing the office project upgrade as the project manager. And they didn't offer me anything. So I sat down with the director and was like, I'm happy to do this, but I would like a bonus, please. And so I got a bonus. And I, like me before that, never would have been cheeky enough to ask for that. I would have just been, I'm just going to work really hard to like prove my worth. So I ended up staying there longer than I initially wanted to after I didn't get maternity leave cover role, because I decided to put my hand up to be this project manager, have that on my CV. So when I decided to leave, I would have that to show that I'm capable of taking on extra responsibility. Because I was the only person who made sense for that role and it was my role, The person who got the role over me announced that she was pregnant a couple of months into it and was therefore unable to finish the maternity leave cover role. And because I was still there for that, the girl who initially got the maternity leave cover role, I was there for her to announce her pregnancy. I was still there because I took on the project Inspired Action, right? To stay, do that, and have that on my CV. And once I was done with the project, I was asked to then take over the remainder of the maternity leave cover role, which was only like 2 or 3 months, I think. I always had in my mind from like seeing other people go on maternity leave that a lot of people say, I'll be back full time, and then wouldn't come back full time. So I was like, I always thought in my mind, like, I didn't close off the possibility that even though my boss is a lifer, and even though she'd spoken about it the whole time about like, I'll be coming back full time, I had left the possibility open in my mind that she might still come back part time. So right up until the week before she was due to come back from maternity leave, she was saying, I'll be back full time. I'll be back full time. And then the week before she was due to come back, she was like, okay, it actually doesn't make sense for me to come back full time. Is it possible for me to come back part time? And by this time, the office had grown from 35 people to around 65 to 70 people. It fluctuated a bit. For those who have worked in a similar environment, you know that the turnover can be quite rapid. So it had essentially doubled in size. And she had already been promoted to regional lead admin. So what ended up happening is not only did I end up getting the maternity leave cover role, which some of you might have been thinking like it was only for a couple of months, Cerise, big deal. I then became the permanent office manager, and she continued being regional lead admin, but being more active in looking after the other offices that she oversaw. If that's not an example of circumstances don't fucking matter, I don't know what is. And that wasn't even when I was intentionally trying to manifest something, consciously manifest something. I had just built my self-concept around my like work ethic and capabilities enough that the story I told was like, I'm the only person who makes sense for that role. And it became my role, and it became permanent. So I guess what helped me along the way was that I had seen other people go through maternity leave and say they'd work full time and then come back full time and then came back part time and things like that. But again, I wasn't consciously manifesting anything. So you now knowing how conscious manifestation works, knowing about the law of assumption, that regardless of what you've seen in the past, you actually choose. So even if I had never seen people say that they were going to come back full time from maternity leave and then would come back part time, even if I had not observed that before, if I knew and understood conscious manifestation, I could have been like, well, that doesn't matter. Or just be like, to go more general, instead of having to micromanage how something would actually happen, just be like, it's all going to work out. Like, I'm going to be doing that full time. That's my job, you know? So keep that in mind. Nothing's a done deal. Nothing's set in stone unless you accept that it is or choose for it to be. And I wasn't aware at the time that my language was creating that I did not accept the circumstances at the time. And again, that is a work-related example, but you can use that as inspiration in any area of your life that you are manifesting something that you consider to be like the main thing you're manifesting consciously at the moment. I hope you found that inspiring. You would have noticed somewhere along the way that I was talking about my self-concept improving naturally, but we can also do that consciously, right? Just like anything we can do in our lives. So don't forget to sign up for the no obligation to buy Solid Self-Concept course waitlist. You'll get a 50% off code on release when, or if, and only if you're on the waitlist. I'm also working out another really awesome bonus, but I want to keep it a secret. I want to keep it a secret. Even if you don't think that you want to work on self-concept, or you think that you've got your self-concept work down, which honestly, a lot of you from what I see on the live streams especially, will say things like, my self-concept's awesome. I'm, it's 100%. I hear this a lot. My self-concept's 100%. Why don't I have the thing that I want? If your self-concept was 100%, you wouldn't be asking me that question. So if any of that resonates with you, then maybe the course would be helpful. But even if you don't think you need or want to do it at this point, you'd be kicking yourself if you weren't on the wait list and you were ready by the time it's released and you have to pay full price instead of half price. So sign up, okay? Just do it. If you found that helpful in any way, or the way that I teach conscious manifestation resonates with you, or I've helped some concepts land for you in terms of conscious manifestation, please like, share, comment, and or subscribe. It helps me build this channel so that I can help as many people as possible on a completely free platform. As always, thank you for being here. You're a fucking legend. Don't you ever forget it. And until next time, have a good one. I want to